So our next panel is going to be about transforming economics through blockchain. Our moderator for this session is Bashar Lazar. Please help me welcome him. He's the Director of Operations, Middle East and North Africa at Consensus. Very nice to have you. And as we said, this is going to be a very interesting session to talk about that. So let's invite our dear panelists as well. Wahid Barghouti, CEO of Dakawak, please join us to the stage. Philippe Langans, software engineer at Ethereum, please join us to the stage. Welcome. Yeah. Kubeli Ekmechi, VP of Sales, Middle East and Africa at Crontech, please join us to the stage. So we call this such a geeky topic, you know, blockchain. So we hope that you will all enjoy it, and the stage is yours.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Starting off thanking as well the EDB, the MIT Enterprise Forum, alongside with the Internet Society. I know it's the third and final panel, second in a row or third in a row, I believe, and it's getting a little bit difficult. So we'll try to make it as entertaining as possible, and hopefully we'll find a way to also engage you into joining this discussion with us during this panel and after, as we all take advantage of a little bit of food. So to start off, I'd love to actually give a few minutes to our panelists to introduce themselves so that you can get a little bit of an idea of what it is that they do on their day-to-day lives.
Yeah, my name is Wahid. I'm founder and CEO of Dakawak.com. Dakawak is actually a website translation and localization platform. We're doing some machine learning and some blockchain stuff on that company and some other companies as well.
Yeah, this is Kubeli Ekmekci. I'm from Crontech. I'm responsible for the Middle East and Africa region. We are actually providing security solutions, especially the network access management solutions. And we are applying our solutions to some blockchain infrastructures which are being used by the brokerage companies. Yep.
Hi everyone, my name is Philippe Langans. I'm working for the Ethereum Foundation. My work is mainly focused on browser and wallet security and browser technologies, and I'm also involved in the grants application and screening process.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. As you may see, we've been very lucky and fortunate to have a highly diverse panel today. Maybe we could start with a quick show of hands, given the topic of the discussion today. I'd love to know within the audience if we can show our hands for all of those who feel like they have a comfortable understanding of what blockchain technology stands for. Okay, wow, this is great. Quite a few people in there. I think it still warrants maybe a brief introduction. Maybe Philip, you could lead us through the journey.
Sure. So I think it started roughly 10 years ago, right, with this famous paper from Satoshi Nakamoto about digital currencies or cryptocurrencies, and then people got really excited. Everyone was talking about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, but people had this one question: why should I have another digital money? Like, what is the point? I already have a credit card, I can pay with it, it's digital already. So what is it all about? Is it just a big scam? And then the focus shifted. Maybe it's not just about this like currency, maybe it's about the technology behind it, the blockchain. And this is getting like all the attention now. People think maybe having currencies is just one application, and then there are things like Ethereum that say you can compare it to like cryptocurrency being one application, but we are like a smartphone. Everyone can deploy a new financial application on our platform, and there's like tons of applications for this. But I would go even further, and I would emphasize that it's also important to see when we speak about blockchain technology, blockchain is probably the least interesting aspect of it. Blockchain is, for me as a developer, just a data structure. It's immutable. You have one operation you can append to it. You can create a new block and put it in the end of a list. And it's not really that exciting. And what I think is really exciting is all the stuff that is happening around it, like with all the money that is coming into this space and all the technology that is built around it, the advances in cryptography, zero knowledge proofs, private public key cryptography, elliptic curves, all of this. Then you have smart contracts, and then there are these consensus protocols. Proof of stake, proof of work are very important. But I think the most important aspect, and I think the keynote today really nailed it, is the network aspect. So we have systems that so far have been really protected from each other because it was insecure to open up. But now we can actually bring these systems onto a network and we connect them and we can benefit from it. And we have a secure means of exchange. Is it cryptocurrencies or other assets or just managing identities and things like this? And this is really the whole big idea about blockchain technology when we speak about it.
Thank you, Philip. So a shared record across participants that allows us to entertain a single source of truth. Now, while blockchain became a familiar word through the rise of cryptocurrencies, as you mentioned 10 years ago, and I think it was five years ago that Charlie Munger from Berkshire Hathaway called it rat's poison. And I think Bill Gates responded that it was a technological tour de force. Since then, we've seen essentially a tremendous level of dynamic into the exploration of this technology, with up to 90% of banks across North America and Europe actually exploring or piloting blockchain solutions, alongside with the public sector engaging itself with governments of Dubai, Singapore, and Estonia, actively setting highly ambitious targets while enabling the local ecosystem to explore this technology. Yet, there still is some level of skepticism. And Wahid, I'd like to turn to you here to start. Maybe you could help us better understand, within the context of these enterprises and these governments, what could be the key areas of impact that we could see blockchain deliver?
So, surely, I think user authorization and management would be the number one for any enterprise. So they would have at least, for example, I'm going to give Facebook, for example. Facebook currently studying blockchain because they have like huge breaches, historically speaking. Is my voice all right, by the way? I want to, yeah, okay. So basically, I think user management and authorization is one of the key entry points for most of the enterprises. Google is also doing currently a blockchain for basically user management and authorization. Now, it's not necessarily people are connecting blockchain with the cryptocurrency, which is basically something that everyone knows blockchain, understand that it's not really connected, or like it's not like one way. So cryptocurrency can be employed in a blockchain, and some blockchains does not really have a currency. So it's not necessarily to have a currency with a blockchain infrastructure. Yeah, I can.
So while it started off with the currency and then transferred onto the banking industry, we're also seeing some of these tech giants alongside with cross-industry verticals exploration.
Yeah, so even banks are not really interested in the cryptocurrency alone. They're interested in the blockchain as a technology. Mm-hmm. They want to basically deploy blockchain for their current systems instead of using like mutable way or something that can be deleted or changed in their basically database. They want something that is solid and immutable. So not necessarily the cryptocurrency itself.
Maybe Kubile, maybe you could share with us some perspective on your end on this potential impact within enterprises.
Actually, I'd like to talk a little bit about another, not the use case of the blockchain, but let's talk about a little bit the assets that we carry on the blockchain. We say that currency, loyalty rewarding points, and ID, whatever. Those are all valuables for us, actually. And here, when we talk about the technology, about the blockchain, there are actually security reasons. that we have to consider. Those are, even though it is a decentralized methodology that we apply in blockchain, the value that we keep is actually we need to trust a brokerage company, which is actually keeps our data, which is the wallet or private key. So those are the main factor that we need to keep in. We think about that. We have to trust that company or not. When the blockchain users increase, think about the miners for the Bitcoin part or the currency part, or just a loyalty point rewarding mechanisms users, or a generic user, whatever. If you are not aware of the value of keeping this wallet, you are highly probable that your wallet is going to be stolen. So we have to think about and keep how to select our brokerage company to access to the blockchain network. For that reason, actually the policy and the governance is one of the issues that we have to think about. Even though with the help of, with the starting point is the Bitcoin for the blockchain technology, it is saying that it's a disruptive and no need government, etc. It's actually one side, but we have to think about that the security of the people assets. At the end, it will be, just a few years ago, I don't remember right now the exact number, a huge amount of Bitcoin was stolen, and it is unknown where it goes. So we need really policymakers need to govern the blockchain environment.
So we'll get back to the policy in just a bit.
Yeah.
But building on to the point that you just made, essentially, and we're getting into the actual challenges here on the utilization of blockchain. As you mentioned, retaining your assets, in most cases, most people are right now leaving that trust with these brokerages. In some other cases, when we're looking at the users, they also have the options, in some sense, to maintain as well their own assets and private keys personally. Maybe we could jump to Philip, and you could maybe share some thoughts.
Yeah, sure. I can share some stories to this topic because I'm dealing with it pretty much every day. Ethereum has its own wallet, and every user should keep their private key protected because the private key represents their funds, and this is really hard for people to understand when they first come into contact with these technologies. So a lot of people contact us actually, and they ask things like, "I forgot my password. Like, how can you please reset it?" And then we say, "There's no server. We don't have access to your account or anything like this. It's decentralized. We cannot reset this." And I had this discussion 2 days ago, and someone asked like, "Wait, you don't have the server, but what happens if I press on the reset button?" And I was like, "There is no reset button. Like, everyone is responsible for their own funds." And this is our level of security, because in order to get all the funds, every single account would have been, every single account needs to be hacked. And this is pretty much impossible without the computational power, without the knowledge to hack into everyone's account, hack into everyone's personal computer, for example, or now we have hardware wallets to protect these keys. But the big problem is also that to explain this to people, how they can access it in a secure way. And the easiest for people to understand it and the most convenient way was to just trust a third party with it. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with it. It sounds complicated, and I don't want to lose all my money, and I don't want to buy an expensive hardware wallet as a first step. I don't want to spend $80 before I even got my first cryptocurrency. And this is one of the hard problems for adoption right now, that people trust a third party, and then it's not Ethereum or it's not Bitcoin that is getting hacked, but it's most of the time it's just an exchange that should keep your private key secure, and they're just not doing it, or they're running away with your money. And the blockchain is secure, but it's also hard to explain this to people, how everyone, and we heard this in the panel before, if it's everyone's responsibility to ensure their own security, this is a big problem to just explain it to people.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so
Please,
basically,
Wahid.
I think, for example, when it comes to exchanges, which is basically most known for cryptocurrency exchanges nowadays, I think there should be some regulations for exchanges. So they have like no right to save any private key on their systems. So actually, I mean, once I generate a wallet, they should have basically sent me my address or my wallet file or like a key public files. So I think regulation could play a big role in this basically scenario, whereby like a company like Ethereum can force any exchange that uses Ethereum to basically not allow saving these wallets in their servers, in the exchange servers. So I mean, this is part of regulation, right?
Yeah.
Now, yeah, if you wanna say something?
No, no,
All
please.
right. So, I mean, hacking a wallet is happening already in real time. I mean, in real life. I mean, someone come and hack my car and take my like jewelry bag whatsoever, right? So gold has been stolen, money has been stolen. It's basically the case that we live in. So, I mean, it's not really that Bitcoin is dangerous because I mean, it's like on blockchain. It's not dangerous. It's just, I mean, as gold. I mean, we have gold in our home. It's safe. Is it safe? I don't know. So,
Maybe the only point there is that, obviously, and this is why I think individuals go to third parties, is the need for that level of security. I mean, it's down the line, your wallet is really a string of letters and numbers randomized, which is sometimes hard either to memorize or even to store, right? So that's where there's potentially a risk for loss. But maybe a small point of clarification. When we mention wallets in the context of blockchain, it is not unlike a traditional wallet in the sense that not only does it help you hold your funds, but also allows you to hold your accreditations, elements that define your identity or membership into those groups, which is why that wallet has so much value down the line. But maybe now that we've looked into the challenges around here, obviously mainstream adoption will require us to have a clear understanding and processes that will enable users to interact with these wallets and these applications more easily. Would you care to share with us maybe any ideas on what could be done in the near future to help further onboarding this mainstream community?
so I mean, I think I mean, so basically now we're talking about cryptocurrency mainly,
Not
right?
necessarily.
So
Sorry.
if we're talking about wallets, it's mainly something that is I want to save, right? So it's mainly cryptocurrency.
It can be your identity.
Yeah,
It can be your
yeah,
access to
exactly.
your
So
utility.
something that I want to save. So I mean, one wallet can contain multiple things. So I think it's a multi-wallet kind of operation. It shouldn't only store cryptocurrency. It can store basically many other things. Now I think something that is like a fingerprint might really be helpful in terms of identifying that I'm the owner of this wallet. So my fingerprint should basically tell this wallet to open or to lock. So I mean, it's to make it mainstream. I think it shouldn't be a problem with a fingerprint. Yeah,
Thank you for
go
that.
ahead.
Kubile, maybe you can share a little bit of your knowledge specifically on the security concerns there.
Actually, Verizon data breach reports in 2017 says that the 81% of data breaches occurs because of the privileged users. I mean, privileged users means that they have highly privileged to access to the systems that you trust, actually. So 81% is actually high amount. It is we shouldn't ignore it. It is not like a 2% or 3%. It is almost closing to 100%.
Could you define a privileged user, please?
Privileged user, yes. So I'm coming to the first topic again. I mean, that the third parties again. For those third parties, even you mention about that there needs then a policy and the data shouldn't be stored. In somehow, there may be some companies that would not obey this rule. But you need some, even though there are some regulations, they can still act it. However, the industry actually discovered this. If you check the finance industry, the banks has some compliances, like a Basel compliance. And in the Basel compliance, if your company is Basel compliant, so that as a user, you can trust it. And another issue is for the privileged users part, in the Basel compliance regulations, it is mentioned that all the privileged users' activities need to be stored, logged, monitored, and auditable. So for the third parties who have accessibility to the blockchain network, and even they are storing your data, your wallet or not, it's not important at that moment. If they are Basel compliant and they are applying these rules for the privileged users, at that moment they are, that you can trust them and you can feel secure. But another topic open there, what happens if your wallet still be stolen? So at that moment, third party becomes responsible, not the user.
Thank you.
I would like to say this. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We've gone quite a bit on the topic of blockchain itself and the infrastructure and some of the risks that come around. But I'd love to hear from you, what are the industries specifically that you're excited about when it comes to the potential impact of blockchain? Could be whether it is away from banking into more traditional, whether it's hospitality, energy. Maybe we could start with you, Philip.
Yeah, sure. So my main topic is around browser security, and for me personally, one thing that I see, and we had it in a previous panel already, so it seems we're covering the topics quite well, is the problem of updating software and how we can secure how we can secure if there's a software already installed like 100 million times on 100 million different devices, and now we make an update that is compromised. We compromise 100 million machines, and again, we don't need blockchain for this. We just need private public key cryptography and certificates for this, and we can sign updates. And previously, this was really hard just to get certificates. We had certificate authorities, and I think this space is like really disrupted, not just by blockchain, but again by cryptography that is seeing a really big renaissance right now. And I think more people in the future will just get their certificates and and use their private keys, not just to manage their funds, but if we figure out how to securely store private keys, you can actually do a bunch of interesting things with it about identity and authorization and just validation, and you can sign your updates so that a potential hacker could not, he cannot just deploy malicious code easily.
So you mentioned identity. Could you give us maybe a few words on what the concept of self-sovereign identity is?
Yes, the idea is that one of the most dominant identity systems is probably Facebook right now. So whenever some user creates an account with Facebook, they get information about this user, and then you have some kind of attestations. So you enter your birthday or you enter your relationship status, and then people, whenever they see that someone has birthday, and they will say happy birthday to this person, it's an attestation that it's a real fact that this person has entered some real and valid data. And now you can log in with your Facebook account into multiple services, and Facebook can share this private information about you with these services. And Facebook owns your identity, basically. They can say, we have all these data and it's backed by this amount of people, and you can log in into other systems and they get the same information about you. But maybe you don't want to share all this information with other services. And this is the whole idea, that people can manage their own identities. And instead of, for example, if you want to show someone that you're above the age of 21 just to get a shared car, for example, you don't have to share your birthday. It's enough to make a proof that you're older than 21, and you can do this with many different ways. So it's more about privacy focused, that you're responsible for your data again, and that you can only share this information that you're willing to share. And if your account at Facebook gets deleted, your identity is still there. It's not that your identity gets deleted, and you decide with whom you want to share, and there's no like Cambridge Analytica that just steals your data and uses for political reasons.
Thank you. Maybe Wahid, you would like to take us through your own perception of what a great use case would be.
Yeah, I mean, there is many use cases actually. Like I was introduced to a company recently that is actually doing a video platform whereby they basically like give credit for the viewers in cryptocurrency. So basically, you're viewing a video and you get an advertisement right now on YouTube, right? So you're not actually getting any reward for that advertisement that you just watched. In this case, you're getting actually a reward, and they're cutting the middleman, which is YouTube, and a reward, and basically the creator is paying for that advertisement. So the advertisement is paid by the creator, and the reward is going directly to the basically the viewers. So basically, this is one of the basically nice applications that cuts the middleman when it comes for basically advertising. I think there's plenty, but the problem is, do you know them? I mean, do you have experienced them? Maybe you had, but you don't really know. So basically, some banks already deployed blockchain in their systems, and they're using it. I mean, it's in the production in their like farm, but you don't really interface or interfere with that system. So it's actually, I mean, it's already up and running in production in many companies. But to know that you are actually using a blockchain system or a backbone that is set up with a blockchain in mind, I mean, that's a question I don't really know the answer for. So
I know that that's a topic that was of interest.
Yeah.
Please.
The best practice, I dream. Yeah, it is. My dream is actually as a consumer in the retail market. Time to time, I am checking that if there is a loyalty point or not, and I'm keeping all those loyalty points to spend it later on. But there's a trouble there, and because of the if all the loyalty systems that the enterprises apply to blockchain, at that moment, each one can be converted to Ethereum coin or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it can be interchangeable. So, for example, I am flying frequently, so I'm obtaining the miles, and then I got the points, but I would like to spend it there, somewhere in the hotel, that one night more. But this is not applicable. Instead of this, I can convert it to my Ethereum coin, and then I can use it in the hotels. So these are the use cases that I'm dreaming actually, that will be soon in the market.
Thank you. I mean, we're on a global scale. We're seeing government agencies and enterprises exploring use cases. I think that range all the way, so from loyalty, as you mentioned, to peer-to-peer electricity exchange, to electric vehicle charging, and many, many more. But I think that there's one that was actually mentioned earlier on, and that could be of interest potentially to the audience here, is the crossroads between blockchain and IoT. IoT providing this rise in hardware deployment for an exponential growth in data generation, but also with all the risks that come with it. How do you see, in this context, blockchain and IoT coming together? Maybe we can come back to you, Philip.
Yeah, this is a challenging question. I have the impression from my personal experience that people get really obsessed by this idea to just get as much data as possible. But from my, or in my opinion, it's always important to have a goal, what you want to do with this data. And the most critical part right now to combine IoT and blockchain is scalability. So it's actually one way to think about it is that big data and blockchain are not really made for each other as it is right now. You cannot just put everything on the blockchain because it's way too expensive and it would not scale. You cannot process these amounts of transactions. We have more IoT devices than people, and we are already struggling with applications for people. And if we bring on all the devices, it will just not work from a scalability standpoint as it is right now. So it's really important to think about what you want to achieve from which data is really critical for you and needs to be secured and needs to be on the blockchain. And then it's also about where you want to analyze it. Should it be on-chain or off-chain? How you want to collect the data and how you want to secure different IoT devices. These are all the interesting aspects, and you can find many good intersections of the two technologies. But if you think of it just like I want to have like the most data and everything should be on the blockchain, it will just not work. So this is definitely the wrong way to do it, but there are many good intersection points, but they need to be decided on a case-to-case basis.
That implies essentially that given the nature of blockchain being this decentralized, replicated record across sometimes tens of thousands of users,
Yes.
if you had all that data copied across all of them, that would create a massive redundancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I mean, every problem has a solution. So even that problem definitely has a solution. I mean, I think already Ethereum introducing new solutions for this basically big data problem. So, I mean, we can split the data. You don't have to share what I have already, right? So it's not replicated. So basically, it's more work on the algorithms that works behind it. I mean, one of the basically examples was introduced by Michael, I think today, was the sprinklers thing, right? So I think, for example, these, I mean, if I want like a solid patching system for these, right? I need to patch these and know that all the 50, 100 or whatsoever is the amount of sprinklers I have needs to be updated in a certain, basically, version. So basically, a blockchain can be applied in this way. Basically, I can know that these sprinklers that have updated with the blockchain, they have this version or they don't have. So, for example, I'm just giving an example of IoT connected to the blockchain. So,
so once updated,
exactly, they update their record on the blockchain. So I know now they have basically a new record, which is basically with the same version that we. So yeah, I mean, just an example. How things can be.
I think it's a great one
yeah.
in the sense that we introduced, slightly earlier, we introduced the concept of self-sovereign identity. And while we think of identity as a tool for individuals, specifically in the context of blockchain and IoT, actually that translates into identity for individuals, for equipment, and for enterprises. Obviously, then there's this process of
yeah. So basically, now I'm gonna say what I'm doing right now. I mean, with machine translation and machine learning, and basically, I'm trying to combine the blockchain and the machine learning together. I'm trying to utilize the blockchain power, basically, which is allows me to basically use people, CPU power and GPU power, to basically learn new things, basically machine learning. So the machine is learning. So this is one of the fields that I'm involved in right now. So I think this is one of the applications that can be coming up in the future.
Thank you. And maybe then on this topic, and I think that this was obviously of interest for everyone here, what do you think the best approach would be in terms of implementing regulation, implementing policy to enable this form of development in the context of blockchain technology? We heard quite a few different sets of opinions here, and I'd love to hear your thoughts collectively on this panel. Maybe you could start with you, Kubile.
Actually, regulations needs to be done by the government. Yeah, it's a clear thing. But however, The technology is going so faster than government. This is the time of the government taking decision. It is in somehow the policy become so legacy. So this is then a problem for that. But instead of that, group of society, some group of civil society can handle this trouble, this problem, and solve it because they can be faster than government to take the decision, and they have tool to affect the government to create the policy quicker than if the government do it by itself.
Yeah.
Philip, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'd love to hear your thoughts as an entrepreneur, as a developer. What your perspective is.
Yeah, in the beginning, I tried to make this breakdown that when we talk about blockchain technology, we actually talk about many different smaller parts of it, many small technologies that in itself are very general purpose. So they can be used for pretty much everything, and they can also have a big impact already in itself on multiple different industries. And I'm coming from a hackathon in Berlin. I was mentoring a hackathon with, I think, 1,000 participants. And regulation was no topic there. There was no one talking about like how this technology should be regulated. Everyone was really excited about like trying out these new algorithms and these new cryptographic principles and mechanisms and things like this. And if someone would come now and just say, hey, you should stop developing these algorithms, they would not even see the point. They would be like, why should I stop working on this? It's a really interesting mathematical problem and I want to solve it. And they were, many of these people, they came from San Francisco, they came from India, they came around the world, they came to Berlin just to hack on these problems. And I think this shows how motivated they are. And if someone would say, you should stop now because it can be used for, in combination with this and that it can be used for bad things, they would just go and develop it somewhere else. So this is definitely the developer standpoint. We are developing general purpose technologies there. From an entrepreneur standpoint, I know that it's extremely important to have regulations because they are the foundation for your business. And if you employ people, you also have responsibilities. And if your parameters from outside change and you go out of business just because of this, that's really bad risk model then, and a failure that you should avoid. So I think strict regulations are not that important for developers for what they are doing. They are more, if they are too strict, they are more important for the countries or for the states because they're losing on innovation, because it will drive away people. They will do it somewhere else.
Maybe on a final note, Wahid, maybe you'd like to share.
Yeah, I actually forgot what I wanted to say, so.
Well, I think that we're running to 8 minutes left, and I wanted to make sure that given the topic itself, we could still open this discussion to the audience itself. Could we please make some mics available to whoever may have a question in the audience? We've got a question there.
Hello, hello. So I have like few points, actually 2 points. It's more related. I've heard some words called like the blockchain is immutable something. Actually, yeah, we might consider it it's hard to compromise, but let's say Ethereum had DAO hack and it was basically kind of rolled back, so it's not immutable any longer at this stage. So how can we be sure that there will be no rollbacks in future? And the second point, like in 95% of the cases where people trying to apply blockchain, there is no such necessity because, let's say, Oracle database can handle it much better. Yeah, thanks.
So is there a question to that?
Yeah, question
Yeah.
is how can we be sure that in future there will be no, let's say, rollbacks on the
So just a
Ethereum
rollback.
chain? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I get the second question as well. You can answer the first one if you want.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it that the blockchain data structure is meant to be immutable, which means you cannot go back in time and just change your account balance to a significant higher amount just because you want to have more currency or anything. To do this, what you would do is not really a rollback, but you would do a fork. So you would create your own chain and you would say, this is my reality and I have $1 million on my account now. And then you have thousands of people who should agree with you that this is now the new reality. And you can definitely do this and try this, but no one will accept it. This is why we have consensus. But there's no guarantee that people are not trying to do this. There's always a reason for disagreement, and that's good. And then people can say, hey, this smart contract had some buggy code and it got hacked, and now these funds are irrevocably lost. And we want to split the community. So one part of the community says we should recover them, the other says we should just continue and don't modify any previous changes, and this happened. And I think it's a good thing to see this, also because it shows us like the politics around blockchains, and there's no way that you can prevent this, and I think there should be no way to prevent this. It's just democratic agreement on a certain state, and it's a good thing.
Yeah. Before we just get to the second point, I think that it's important maybe as well to highlight the case study that emerged out of the specific occurrences you had mentioned of the DAO being one of the first examples of a self-organized, decentralized network coming together to essentially address a specific threat or a specific problem, which may be accepted or not, which is hopefully what we'll see.
I don't want to forget my point, man.
Yes, second point. Go for it.
So, I mean, you mentioned Oracle and why we use actually blockchain if we have Oracle. I mean, all respect to Oracle, I'm not saying anything, but if actually Oracle fits your needs, you should use it. So basically, blockchain is not for every need. Blockchain is for specific needs. So basically, I know that Oracle is scalable. Blockchain can be scalable too. So I think it goes back to the requirements of your system that you want to develop. So it's not really a question if Oracle is good, why should I use blockchain? So this is how I think it should be perceived.
I think we can tie that down to one of the comments from Dr. Michael earlier on, which was essentially you need to prototype. We're at an early stage. We need to identify how to move forward within this industry. Mistakes will be made. We need to essentially manage to recover and identify the right cases. Are there any other questions in the audience? One over there, and a second one right after. Perfect.
We're going to take which one?
Let's go with the gentleman over here, please. I think there's a mic.
Should have a queue.
Hi. So you were talking about regulation a few minutes ago, and GDPR kicked in earlier this year. We're also mentioning immutability of data. So how does GDPR impacts blockchain? How does blockchain works with GDPR? Can you shed some light on that, please?
Who would you like to address this question to, if I don't mind? Everyone. Yeah. Wonderful. Who would like to take it first?
So I think I know a little bit about that, honestly. I know there's new regulations for blockchain companies, so it's basically divided into two different kind of tokens, utility token and an asset token. So, so basically, I mean, utility token is basically most of the current tokens that exist today. Asset tokens are backed by a monetary value or backed by shares of the company. So it's like a different type of tokens. So this is basically like they're trying to define the type of coins or cryptocurrencies that exist. It's a little bit towards cryptocurrency. It's not really towards blockchain regulation. So this is actually targeting only cryptocurrency systems. It's not really about blockchain as a technology.
So I know I'm a moderator, but I might try to take a jab at this as well. Yes, GDPR is a very interesting implementation. although developed before the rise of blockchain technology, unfortunately, it doesn't take much in consideration the kind of dynamics we see on the network itself. Essentially, for those unfamiliar, GDPR aims at setting regulation and policy to help protect user information and user identity. And in the case of blockchain, obviously, this means that we're putting information sometimes on a public ledger that will be shared with a massive number of participants and potentially be stored forever. That could be the potential for this extent. So the question is there, how do you do? What is, I think it was the introduction of, how do you say this, being forgotten on the internet, for example, concept like this that need to be the right to be forgotten. Here we go.
Yeah, I mixed the GDPR with something else. So yeah, it's a new regulation for anyway.
So in that context, obviously there's going to be a best practice implemented in regards to how we architect blockchain solutions to avoid having any form of sensitive information stored on chain. But at the same time, this also pushes for a broader discussion with some of the stakeholders implementing GDPR to make sure that there is a consideration of what kind of assets are traded on blockchain. For example, a slightly technical term.
Let's take the second question, I think.
Yes, no, you're right.
Yeah.
And we'll continue the discussion right after.
Yeah.
We'll go deeper there. There's the final question, and it would have been unfair to miss it given the time left.
Yes, hi. Good morning. My name is Ali from Tarshid Energy. As an energy entrepreneur, I hear that blockchain technology has a big role in energy and energy transformation. So can we have an idea about the big opportunities that blockchain can offer to this sector? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about IoT, and one of the exciting intersections between blockchain and IoT is that you can think of, for example, a fridge that negotiates with the electricity grid if it wants to use 20% green energy or 80% non-renewable energies, and the fridge can make this decision how it gets the power based on the price or some external factors that the owner of the fridge can enter, for example. So you can say that you want to power your fridge with, I don't know, 30% green electricity, and then you code it into a smart contract, and then the fridge can negotiate with different other components and different other systems in a really trustless fashion and in a really efficient way that it gets the electricity it needs. Things like this are some of the ideas.
Sorry, I'm not sure we could hear that.
I couldn't hear.
In how many years? I think time will tell. I think 5 years, maybe. I don't know.
Not necessarily. I think there was a case already in 2016 for houses trading electricities from their solar panels on blockchain.
Yeah.
Already. So yes, but mainstream, hopefully, inshallah, in the next 5 years. I think our time is up. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome me in thanking Wahid, Kubilay, and Philip. Thank you very much.
Thank you.